Hi, I'm Sophie Milliken and welcome to this episode of the Ambition Accelerator. Today I'm talking with Katy Leeson, who is Managing Director of Social Chain. Hey, hello, and today I'm joined by Katy Leeson. Katy is MD at Social Chain. Can you tell us a bit about your career history today, Katy, before we get started?
Yeah, of course I can. So it's kind of been a bit higgledy-piggledy, I'd say. I did A-levels, I did the traditional educational path, but I didn't do very well in my A-levels. I didn't get the grades that I needed. So originally I wanted to go into journalism, and I kind of failed a little bit at my A-levels and went through clearing, got on a course that I hadn't even heard of before. My school didn't teach media, so I kind of took a bit of a leap of faith and went into media and cultural studies as a university degree and found a real passion for it and a real love for it and a love for advertising that I didn't know I did love before that. And then from there I started working as a graduate in a media planning and buying agency, and I was buying press ads, so buying press, radio and outdoor space. Did that for a while, absolutely loved it, proper like loved getting up for work. I just loved it, but I got to a point where what I call comfy slippers. So I found that I could do it with my eyes shut and it wasn't a challenge for me anymore, and I wanted to learn something more, and moved to a bigger agency just to try and test myself and stretch myself a little bit more. Did that for a little while. Same sort of thing happened. I hit that comfy slippers and I knew that I needed to push myself. And there was an opportunity with a new brand, and a magazine had done some sort of update. So I wrote emails to a few brands, and one of them, Misguided, the fashion brand, actually replied back. We pitched for it and won it as an agency. That then led me into moving away from buying press advertising space into the new business and marketing team at MediaCom. And I did that for, was it about 4 years? It was a long time, and completely different skill set. Didn't have experience in it, didn't really know how to approach it. But I relished the opportunity to learn something new. And in doing that and taking that sort of sideways step, I then learned about how to, all the commercials, the contracts, the legal, how to talk to clients, how to engage new business. And then again, I got to that point where I was a bit like, I'd reached the sort of ceiling and knew that I didn't know enough about certain areas of marketing. One of those was digital, and Social Chain popped up kind of out of nowhere. So Social Chain is a social media marketing company. It's a publishing house on social, but also an agency. And they weren't very well known at the time. I think they'd only been going like a year or two.
Are you based in Manchester?
Based in Manchester, yeah. And they are incredibly creative, and they were quite disruptive. And they just kind of popped up. And Steve, the founder, started following me on Twitter. And I just messaged him saying, "Oh, love your stuff. Seeing what you've done in Manchester, I like it." And and then they offered me a job of operations director, which again was completely alien to me. And from there, I was ops director for 6 months before they asked me to apply for managing director. And I've now been there for coming up to 4 years.
And is it a comfy pair of slippers yet? Or are you
No, God, no, not yet. Those slippers are they're still breaking in.
Well, that's good. That keeps things interesting then, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the beauty of social, because it changes every day. And also like just managing people and stuff like that is like, especially in this climate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't get comfy in this.
No comfiness. No, that's good. And you mentioned to me earlier that you've been involved with running your own podcast. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. So my journey, I've got a bit of a personal brand that I've built that I was pushed into. It wasn't something that I wanted to start. Stephen Bartlett, if you've seen Stephen, he is exceptional. His personal brand and then what he talks about, he's so articulate and he does a really good job. The benefit of that for Social Chain is it brings a lot of new business to the agency because we're seen as thought leaders within the space. And as soon as they made me managing director, Steve pushed me into doing it as well. And I was kicking and screaming, not wanting to do it because I didn't really want to put my head above the parapet. But I took a bit of time to really figure out what my why was and what my reason for doing it could be, because I have to, in myself, if I'm going to do something, it's got to be genuine and it's got to really mean something and help people. And what I realised was when they made me managing director, I was really struggling with the fact that they made me MD. I'm a young female. I look younger than I am as well, which doesn't help in certain situations. And I think I've always had in the back of my mind that people judge that a little bit. And I also felt like I moved to Social Chain to learn about digital media, but they've elevated me to a point where everyone should expect me to know everything about a topic. So I really struggled with that, and I started seeing a counsellor. So Social Chain are absolutely incredible on culture and mental health, and we offer therapy sessions to staff if they need it. And I started seeing our therapist, Karen, and we started exploring why I was feeling like that and why I couldn't put my hand up in meetings and why I kind of sat back and wasn't really fulfilling. I was getting frustrated with myself because I knew I wasn't living what I wanted to live within the role. And we realised that my image of what an MD should be was an old man in a grey suit.
Yes.
And that's what popped into my head, and that's why I wasn't fulfilling that role, because in my mind the blocker was I'm not what people expect an MD to be. So we started exploring it, and she said, I've got imposter syndrome. And I'd never really heard of it before, but doing some research into it now, there's 70% of successful people actually have imposter syndrome. And
do you know the split between men and women in that, just out of interest?
I don't, but I do know that famous people that have also had it, which always surprises people, Meryl Streep,
wow,
Albert Einstein,
oh
as well. So, like, you're in good company if you start thinking about those people. And also, if you Google image, I don't know if it's changed now because I've not done it in a while, but if you Google image managing director, all the pictures are white men in grey suits.
I heard that, yeah.
So, and the first image of a female MD, when I looked at it at the time, was a Getty image. It wasn't even a real image. So I was not
12 of Google as well, probably.
Yes, yeah. So not only was I thinking I wasn't good enough because I'd had this image in my head, society was also telling me that I wasn't right for that role. And then I started going inwards. So I did a lot of work with Karen, and I realised that if 70% of people suffer from it, I've got the capacity to be able to get up and talk about it, be open and honest, and put myself out there and say things that you wouldn't expect a managing director to say, because you very rarely get a male MD stand up and start talking about their insecurities and their flaws. So that was where the personal branding started. Long-winded answer to that question, but that's where the personal branding started. I got up on stage and started doing presentations on imposter syndrome. The feedback was incredible, like more than I could have ever expected. People messaging me saying how grateful they were that I'd helped them with their understanding of what was going on. I had one girl who messaged me for a coffee, and we met, and she was like, I want to do this for my career, but I feel like I'm in a blocker here. She then got the dream job after a few months, and I was like, this is why I've got to do it. It's not an ego thing. It's not about building my own profile. It's to help other people. So from there I started writing articles on LinkedIn. And then I'm not really a writer. I'm not a very good speller. So that became a bit of a chore rather than a pleasure. So we moved then onto podcasts, and we spent a bit of time thinking of what should the podcast be called. And it was actually, this is where I am super honest, I'm far too honest. We were debating it, we were thinking what should it be called, and then I went for a wee and I was just on the toilet, I was like, I shouldn't say this, but because that's exactly what it is. A female MD or an MD of any type shouldn't be getting on a podcast and talking about seeing a therapist, talking about imposter syndrome, talking about their disastrous love life, talking about the fact I had a miscarriage a couple of Christmases ago, and just opening up, and also challenges within work life as well, just making things feel normal to other people. And I'm incredibly proud of it.
Sounds good. So how often do you release episodes on that? How does it work?
Well, pre-lockdown. So pre-lockdown, it was every week. And then alongside that, I've got a social media plan that goes with it. So like we're doing now, we're recording, I'd film it as well. And then I'd put videos on LinkedIn as promotions for the podcast, but also bits of content. But then post-lockdown, I'm trying to do every other week, but there's been quite a lot going on in the media that it hasn't felt always right to do a podcast. So at the moment, I'm trying to do once a fortnight.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's good. I'm definitely going to go and check that out. I hadn't. Brilliant. So obviously you've now been doing lots of work on tackling your imposter syndrome, and then obviously you've got this great podcast. So have you got a top tip around how people should be dealing with it?
Yeah, it's embrace it. Embrace your imposter. It means that you are pushing yourself, which means you're in growth mode. Mm-hmm. So for me, my imposter syndrome only really comes out when I feel uncomfortable with something. But what I've learned from being in a company such as Social Chain is we're all kind of imposters. None of us fit that social norm, and we can do amazing things because of that. Mm-hmm. So for me, as soon as I know that I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable, it's like understanding that, yes, no, I've got to just ignore the fact that something's making me doubt myself, because I know that if I just try it, it could be great. And if it's not, I'll learn from it anyway. It's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes time. But yeah, I know that I'm growing. I've took a lot of time to sit back and learn my values as well. So the podcast, the first series that I did, I had quite a few guests on. And the theme that really came out of it was understanding your values, your personal values. Mm-hmm. I'd never done that before. In the 15 years that I've been working, I didn't really know what it was that was the driver for me. I didn't sit down and figure it out. And in doing that, I know that learning is one of my values. If I'm not feeling that imposter syndrome, I'm not kind of learning either.
Yeah.
So
that's a good way of thinking about it. So so you embrace it.
Embrace it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, when things make you nervous or anxious, it's because you care and because you want to do a good job. And I think probably imposter syndrome is a bit similar to that, in that you're only kind of, it's there because you want to be great at whatever you're doing. So in some ways it's not a bad thing, even though it doesn't feel particularly nice when you're experiencing it.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's not a nice feeling at all, but it does. Yeah, and I think just knowing that you are in that role, so what I really had to do was look at why they'd put me as an MD.
Yeah.
My strengths that I can see is all around the caring side and the people side, and that fits with the culture of what Social Chain is. That doesn't automatically fit with what's in your mind as a managing director, but it actually is what makes me successful. So sit back and have a look at what it is in your personality that makes you a success in your job, and really double down on that as well is probably a good tip.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I think that's good. So thinking back to sort of when you started out in business, or in your career, or even before that, did you have any role models that you looked up to, and do you have any now?
See, that's the other reason that I do the personal branding, is because when I started out in media and marketing, it was really tough to see a vision of where I could get to. Mm-hmm. There was lots of men in senior positions, and I am quite ambitious, and again, I want to learn, but I didn't really think at the time, what is it I want? I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. No idea. But I knew that I kind of didn't want to go. What I saw was a pattern of women in the industry getting to their 40s, having babies, going part-time, working, not working full-time. But I knew that kind of wasn't for me, but I couldn't really see another path. So another reason that I've done the personal branding is because I'm a big believer in you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
And if I can help show that you can kind of do things as well as do your career, then great. Role models now, it's really tricky. I struggle to find many in my area. I think Karen Blackett has been an amazing sort of far away mentor. So when I was working at MediaCom, I was very lucky to spend a bit of time with Karen. She followed a similar career path to me as well, which was nice. So she really gave me quite a lot of tips, and just watching the way that she operates. So Karen is absolutely incredible, and I've still not mastered this skill, is when she sees people that she's met before, she remembers something about you. So it makes, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like they care.
Yeah, you feel a bit special.
Feel special. It's just the best. And that's one skill that I want to learn. I want to be better at that. And that's come from her. And just watching how she does that is just, it's like magic.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds a good one. So in terms of, I guess moving on from role models, have you got a sort of tribe of people that you surround yourself with, that you get energy from, that support you with everything career related?
Yeah, I've got a really good support system, but they're in different places, so it's not like one group. My dad is absolutely amazing, and whenever I'm really struggling with something, even though he has no clue what I do as my job, he just really helps me. So my dad, the story about my dad's quite interesting. So he was a teacher, but he broke his back whilst teaching and had to take early retirement, and then had to change his career completely, and he struggled a lot. And he's a proper inspiration for me, because if he can get through that sort of stuff, anyone can, so my dad massively helps me. He calms me down if I'm having a few struggles. And then I've got people that I can trust, and I think the skill of a real leader is not to flap in front of everybody.
Yes.
You need to be able to have those people that you can have a bit of a flap with.
Yes, but it's choosing the right people at the right moment, isn't it?
Yeah. We talk a lot about it actually at Social Chain, and the vibrations that you let off as a person. So for me, if I'm feeling stressed, people will see it if I let it show. So it's that swan mode, and there's certain people that I'll just let it all out, and they then help me work my way through it. But I've got a great support system of friends from school, people in work. It's not really business people. I've not really got a mentor either, which is interesting.
Have you ever?
No, not really. I've kind of call on different people with different challenges. So mentoring's a funny one, because I think you've really got to find the person that you click with.
Yeah.
And it's having the time to dedicate to it as a mentor and as a mentee. It's so I've not really cracked that myself.
That's interesting. Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I've when I was in my corp, so I worked at John Lewis for about 12 years after university, and we were just given mentors, which was quite an interesting concept, because how do you form a relationship with someone that you've just kind of been assigned to? And there were 4 of us that started at the same time, and I got on really, really well with mine, to the point that I'm still in touch with her today. But the others, some of those relationships didn't even get off the ground because they just weren't a good match. But over the years, there's been people that I've come across at various events or things that I've been involved in, who I've naturally just kind of bonded with on some level, and I've either, as you've said, just sort of picked certain people out for just sort of one-off bits of advice, or sort of slightly longer term things as well. But I think that you're right, the key has to be that you've got some sort of connection with them, and that you choose them, and that they've got the time to devote to it as well. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? That is interesting. Okay, so tell me a bit about your working pattern. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Neither.
You're neither. Oh, so what do you do? Just work all the time, or none of the time?
I really get annoyed at myself, because I'd love to be an early bird, and I just can't get out of bed in the morning. It's so bad. And I'm laughing because I've really tried in lockdown, and I just can't do it.
Well, if it's not happening, it's not happening, is it?
Oh, yeah, no, but when you try every trick in the book to try and be more productive in the morning, and I just can't do it. I just love my sleep. I've always loved my sleep.
Do you go to bed late?
No, you know what? I don't.
You just sleep for ages.
I sleep for ages.
That's all right.
So yeah, I love my sleep. I wouldn't say that I'm either an early bird or a night owl. I think if I've got something to do, I'll get up. But also, if something really inspires me, then I can work as long as necessary. But I am quite keen on making sure I have downtime. So one of the things I learned about myself when I was doing my new business role at MediaCom was that the pressure and the stress, if I put too much in, I get migraines. Right. And they're stress migraines, but I was having them pretty much every day.
That's good.
Yeah, and that was a massive learning curve for me because I know my limits now. So it's not that I have a set working pattern, it's all around productivity and getting as much done. So I've tried really hard to set, especially in lockdown, to set myself 3 tasks that I do every day that I know that are on my head. So I know that I feel better then, and then it's lifted off my brain. They're usually quite big tasks, obviously, with what I do. So 3 is the sort of right amount for me. But then that makes me feel better and I feel productive about moving forward. And then I also spend a bit of time with my emails. So my emails is like my to-do list, and I file everything when I've done it. A bit of an OCD thing. It's more like I need to just make sure that it's all done and then I can move on, because otherwise it just sticks in my brain. So I just put classical music on, blur that out, and sit and just do my emails and crack through them.
And do you have set times with emails? Because emails, I guess, is a big time sucker for lots of us. And I'm probably too switched on with emails, and I respond to things really quickly. And like you, I file things as soon as I've dealt with them or whatever. So, I'm filled with horror when I see people with like these massive inboxes with like 300 unread emails. It makes me feel really sick. So I can't deal with that. And I have to finish each day where I see them all on one page and I've done what I can with them. And I like to see space in my inbox. But I've heard of people that, have set times where they just look at emails so it doesn't drain away from doing your 3 big tasks or something else. What do you do with yours?
Yeah, I have set times in the week, really. So I try and do it then, and then I don't beat myself up if my inbox is a little bit bigger outside of those times. I don't have notifications for my emails on my phone. So I get absolutely hammered with WhatsApp. That's the way we communicate. We've got Facebook Workplace, but also we use WhatsApp as a communication tool. And you should see, I'm not even going to check how many notifications I get a day. It's crazy. So to have emails on top of that was just stressing me out unnecessarily. And the beauty with emails, and another trick actually that I've learned, is that you shouldn't apologise for not replying to someone. You just kind of say, thank you for your patience. You thank someone rather than saying sorry. So if you're going through your emails and you do it at a set time and you've noticed an email you've not responded to, reply and say, thank you for your patience. This is what's been going on, but I'm back to it now. And you feel better because you feel like you're not apologising, you don't feel guilty. And 2 people really respect it as well. So that's a good little tip. Saying thank you, it's a good task actually to check yourself as to whether you're apologising too much. So switch the words sorry for thank you for a week and see how it affects you. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I think that is quite often the thing, isn't it? You always sort of apologise, sorry for the delay in coming back to you, when it's been like a day, and that's not ages anyway. I mean, I have this kind of internal thing where I like to respond to emails within a business day. So I won't reply to things on the weekend. I will wait, but it will be within a business day. And then if I fall outside of that, I'm kind of feeling really like, I should have got back to them. They're going to think I've been sat doing nothing, or it's just crazy, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting one, I think. So let me see what else I'm going to ask you about. Let's talk about work-life balance. So in the book, my view is, and it's my view outside of the book, it's just my view on work-life balance, is that it doesn't exist. So you read about all this, we can have it all and all this sort of stuff. And I just don't think that's the case. I think that there's certain things that you can prioritize at certain points. So you can have family as the priority at one point, or work, or whatever, or a couple of them, but you can't have everything at the same time. What do you think?
I completely agree. So I've got a very good friend, Fionn, who is kind of a mentor, but more of a friend, I guess. And we worked together for a long time. She always says to me, it's a work-life blend. And it's having the blend rather than the balance. Because if you've got a balance, something will more naturally be out of tilt. And that's brilliant. So yeah, I'm the same. I like to have time that I know that I'm taking time off, especially at the moment with your screens, like you need to, because otherwise you just end up fatigued. But also making sure you're giving your mind a rest, because there's a big thing in creativity. And if you're constantly on and you're constantly working, you're not able to be creative. And especially in a leadership role where you need to take a step back, look at things from more of a helicopter view. I need that downtime, because that's usually when the best ideas spark. Just like that subconscious brain needs time to work its magic. And it's not going to do that if you're constantly putting into your conscious brain. So for me, I try and give myself a good blend of downtime, as well as, because I feel refreshed and energized, and I know that I am more productive in my work time if I have a good amount of off time as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And sometimes you kind of beat yourself up about it and feel like you should be, doing these ridiculous hours and ridiculously long days all the time, but it is counterproductive. And I think you're absolutely right with that. Whenever I have a break, like often when I'm on holiday, although holidays seem like a thing of the past right now, but when I'm on holiday, I'm very disciplined around not checking emails and stuff like that. I haven't always been. It's taken me quite a while to learn to do that. But once you kind of out of the workplace and you do get that chance to just think about things, and like you say, you have your best ideas, you feel more refreshed, you're choosing hopefully to think about those things in your own space. And I think if you love what you do, for me that's not a chore anyway. But yeah, you've got to have that time, haven't you? You've just it. And I think it's hard at the moment, because at the time today when we're recording, we're still in some kind of lockdown and we're working from home. And I think, I don't know about you, but I'm finding it hard to stay disciplined and have set work days and not let things blend into each other. I often find, I'm an early bird, so I get up really early. Like I'm up at 5 every day, just boom, away. Jealous. I know, but I just wake up at that time. I haven't set the alarm for like all year. I just wake up and I'm ready to go. But the downside of that is I get really tired in the evenings, and then because I end up working quite a long day, by the time I'm sort of switching off, I'm so tired that I can't be bothered to do anything, and that's not great.
It's about knowing yourself, and also the thing that helps me switch off is being like controlling my workload. So if I know that I'm on top of everything, so by setting those 3 tasks a day, I know that I'm on top of my workload. I think when I feel out of control and it's in someone else's hands and I'm being chased for something that I've not done because I know that I've not done it, but I've also not updated that person or I've not got back to someone, that's when I lose my balance. Yeah, so that's the way. So if I'm in control and know that I've ticked off everything that I needed to do that day or that week, I can completely switch off, and I'm really good at being able to, like 5 o'clock on a Friday, 5:30 on a Friday, that's it, I'm done, and I don't think about stuff till on Monday. But that's because I know I've done everything that I need to do. So I think it's all about setting your priorities, knowing what it is that's going to help you feel comfortable in your off time. And I'm also trying to encourage a lot of the people in work right now to say no to things. I think we've become a little bit guilty of saying yes because we want to help other people out. And then clients sometimes can take a little bit of advantage of that or expect that it happens every time. So I'm trying at the minute to encourage the team the power of saying no and the benefit of what you get longer term and the benefit of the way it works longer term.
Interesting. So, given kind of your job role and what you guys are known for and stuff, I'm going to ask you one of my questions around social media in particular, because you've referred to a couple of things. What's your platform of choice for work on social media? Is it Instagram or?
No, well, it's LinkedIn. So my biggest following, I'd say, is on LinkedIn, but I also use Twitter and Instagram. So each platform I use for different reasons. With the podcast and the content that I put out there being a mixture of personal and work, I tend to split the content onto different platforms. So LinkedIn, I put more business updates and social media updates and also leadership things. And then Instagram, I'll focus more on the leadership side, but also the personal side as well. And then Twitter's just a bit of a mixture.
Okay. And have you got any tips to give around how to use social media well for work?
Yeah, I think it's all around finding your why and understanding what your difference is and why people would want to follow you. And it's consistency as well. But in order to get to that consistency, you've got to have something that you're passionate about. So for me, I learned that writing the articles, yes, it was getting a good response from people, but I actually found it more of a chore, which meant that the consistency wasn't there. So you've got to find something, a topic that you're really interested in, something that people find useful, because that's how you get your following, and also something that you can be consistent with because you enjoy doing it.
Yeah. So for you then, social media for work is used as part of your personal brand?
Yeah, it's my personal brand for work. And then it helps build my profile, which helps build the agency's profile as like a thought leader within the space.
Got it. Cool. That's interesting. Good. So thinking about, your career so far, you've clearly had some great successes, and the fact that, you were promoted within 6 months in your current organisation. What's next for you? What's on your list? What are your ambitions?
It's really bad, but I don't know. I really don't know. I don't really. It's crazy. I've never, as I say, even when I was younger, I never knew what I wanted to be.
So with your previous sort of promotions and the way you've progressed in your career, did you set yourself goals for any of that? Did it just happen to you, or?
It just happened because I followed my values. Now I know that I followed my values. So in following the fact that I wanted to learn more meant that I then was promoted. But I am quite ambitious and competitive, which is part of probably why. Yeah, it just kind of happened. I say that, and that's probably doing myself a bit of a disservice, but it's kind of just happened naturally with me doing a job that I enjoy.
So it's you taking opportunities that have presented themselves because you've been good at what you do. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
When you've had those successes and you've been promoted and things, do you stop and celebrate or congratulate yourself in any way?
I always buy myself something. Yeah. So if I get promoted, I buy myself one treat. So I bought myself a leather jacket from All Saints, which was horrendous when I moved one job. My latest one, I saved up. When I got promoted to MD, I saved up and I bought myself a Burberry Mac.
Nice.
I love nice things. I'm not ridiculous in terms of spending, but if I can treat myself, and it's something that I can keep for a long time.
It's lovely that you've linked it to something as well, though. Like, that's really nice that you say, well, got promoted to MD, so I bought myself this, because then that's got really positive memories, and there's a lot of value in that, rather than you just fancied it. I think that's
I will. That's what I always think. Like, I need to take a step back and really think about the achievements that I've made, because it is quite crazy. I'm only 36, so I don't really know what the future's going to hold, I've started doing a bit of non-exec director work, and that's something that I really want to pursue more of, because it kind of helps me with my imposter syndrome in a weird way, because people asking me for my advice on stuff that I'm doing now validates the fact that I do know what I'm doing. It's a really weird way of thinking about it, but
no, yeah. I think that makes total sense, because sometimes you kind of think you're at whatever level, and then actually having that contact with people in a different setting kind of reminds you that actually I know a lot about this. So
Yeah.
I get that.
That's what I want to do more of, is just making sure I can help people, making sure that the podcast and the personal branding just helps as many people as possible, and just keep learning, really.
Yeah, no, that all sounds really good. Keep learning, I like it. So we've covered quite a bit actually, which is fantastic. So let's finish on one key piece of advice that you've received, which has served you well, and you'd like to pass on.
I think my big one would be, don't be afraid to fail. And I think it's really hard to get your head into that. But I have made the biggest movements forward in my development when I've made a mistake. So I think for me, I've made errors. Everyone's going to make mistakes, but it's how you learn from those and make sure you don't do them again. And that for me has probably been my biggest career learning. I was so frightened. I think at school and the whole education system, you're taught to pass things, and it's like you're ingrained with this fear of failing. If you fail this exam, you're not going to do this, and if you do that, and there's been certain moments where I've not done as well as I planned, or I've made a mistake, and they're the moments that I've had the biggest growth. So and there's someone at my work, and whenever we don't win a pitch, we don't say we haven't won a pitch, we say lessons, not losses.
Nice.
And I think that for me is probably one of the biggest career tips that I can tell anyone, is don't be afraid. And just don't do it again. If you've made it once, learn from it. If you do it again, you've not learned.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important that younger people in particular know that it is okay to make mistakes, because I think, like you say, you've got this kind of hangover from school and education that, it's really bad to make a mistake. But actually, once you've been in business for a few years, like you say, you realise that a lot of the learning comes from that. And actually, the more senior you get, I think it's easier to admit to mistakes, because you're then responsible for resolving them or whatever, and you just get a bit more comfortable in your own skin anyway. And I think you realise that actually it's not, unless you're in something like medicine where it's literally life and death, which you definitely wouldn't want to be making mistakes. But I think in business, actually, like you say, you learn from that. So I think it's, I guess, pulling from what you've said there, for people that are starting out in their careers, it's admitting to those things. Because I'm thinking back to when I started out in my career, and I'm sure I made loads of mistakes, and I can't even remember what they were now, so clearly they weren't that important, but I'm sure I made them. And I can just sort of remember feeling really anxious about things at work, and going home on an evening and thinking, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said this to this person, and kind of worrying about things. But actually, if you just deal with it, acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on, that's it really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that it's really important. And ask for feedback as well. That's probably a really good tip, because I think we're scared, in the same vein, we're scared to hear negative feedback. But again, that's how you develop, and you get to the point where you want to get to, what your goals you want to achieve, is by understanding what you need to develop in. So if you think of feedback as a development point rather than someone just not being nice to you, which is how it feels.
Yeah, it's constructive, isn't it?
I'm not there. I don't like feedback. It's hard. But
and feedback tends to be a bit balanced. It's unusual someone would just tell you all the bad stuff, and hopefully it's delivered in a way that is constructive. And someone once told me that feedback's a gift, and you can choose whether you accept it, because quite often it's someone's view. So you might not totally agree with it, but you can pull bits out of it that you feel are relevant, and then act on that. But you're right. I mean, we do, in our business, we do a lot of work to help students secure graduate jobs, help to prepare them for jobs. And we always say to them, if you failed at an assessment centre or an interview, you must ask for the feedback. And they don't want to, because they've been unsuccessful, and it's like rubbing salt in the wound, so to speak, because they're then finding out exactly what they did wrong. But actually, often it's just something really small, and if they work on that, they'll get the job next time. So I think so asking for feedback and learning from mistakes is all.
I was on a really good training course last week. I don't know if you've heard of Amazing If. They've wrote a book, Squiggly Careers.
Yes, I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
So it's two ladies, Helen, and I'm not sure the other lady's name, but Helen did us a training course last week about growth mindset, and she said about feedback. And if you think, if you're in, it's all about your mindset and control of it as well. So if you're in control of asking for feedback around goals that you want to achieve. So if you say to someone, I'm trying to achieve this, please may I have some feedback so I can get there. Well, as soon as she said that, I was like, that makes a hell of a lot of sense, because that is matching and it helps me get to where I'm trying to get to, rather than it just being unsolicited feedback that you didn't ask for that makes you feel like you're getting attacked. This is you're in control of feedback, with a view of getting to where you want to get to.
Yeah, it's almost detaching yourself from it, because feedback does feel personal.
Yeah,
it is. But then in this scenario, it's about your, how your behavior at work. So it's personal, but not. So if you can detach yourself a bit, you can be more pragmatic about receiving that and then acting upon it, I think. So great. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Katy. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Ambition Accelerator as much as I enjoyed recording it. If this was your first experience of tuning in, go back and listen to previous episodes, as there are some brilliant ones. Please do go and check those out. Hope to catch you next time.